There comes a moment in every human life when a definitive decision must be made, to keep believing what the eyes can see or to choose to trust what the heart already knows. Most people never make that choice. They spend their days chasing money, success, validation, as if something outside could fill the emptiness within. But true awakening begins when you understand that the outer world is only the echo, the origin is within you. Today, you're going to discover a sentence that, when spoken with the right awareness, can completely shift your vibration and initiate a financial transformation in just 24 hours. This isn't superstition, it's a law. The law that what you affirm as inner truth becomes an outer reflection. If you're ready for this turning point, write in the comments, "I am the source of my abundance." This simple act begins to shape your new destiny. Jacobo Grinberg was a scientist who had the courage to explore the deepest territories of human consciousness. A psychologist, neuroscientist, and student of spiritual traditions, he dedicated his life to investigating the true nature of reality. And what he discovered challenges everything we've been taught about the world around us. For Grinberg, reality is not something external, fixed, or uncontrollable. It is shaped, moment by moment, by the perceptual structure of every human being. What you feel, believe, and uphold within inevitably becomes what you live. This isn't motivational belief. It's a hypothesis supported by experiments, lived experiences, and a profound investigation of the mind and the field of energy that connects us to everything. According to his neural field theory, there exists an invisible matrix where consciousness interacts with universal information, creating the illusion of a solid world. This means the life you experience is, first and foremost, a reflection of your inner vibration, of what you accept as true. What you're about to learn in this video is a practical application of that truth. How a single sentence, spoken with presence, can align your mind with abundance and open paths that previously seemed blocked. Most people spend their lives trying to change what's outside, the bank account, the job, the circumstances. But almost no one stops to look at the true point of origin of everything, what's inside. True manifestation doesn't begin with external effort, but with inner transformation. And this is where the law of inner manifestation comes in. A principle that states that everything you live in the physical world is, in fact, a consequence of what you uphold internally as reality. Jacobo Grinberg showed, based on his research, that the mind not only perceives the world, it creates the world. This means your beliefs, emotions, and thoughts are not merely reactions to circumstances. They are creative forces. When you believe in scarcity, you live it. When you believe in flow and abundance, that also becomes your reality. Not because the world changed, but because you changed the way you interact with it. This law doesn't depend on luck, charisma, or talent. It depends on your ability to align internally with what you want to see reflected externally. And here is the central point. You don't attract what you want, but what you believe is already yours. It's inner conviction that activates manifestation. Many people think, "I'll only believe it when I see it." But the spiritual truth is the opposite. You will only see it when you believe it. True faith is not passive waiting, but active conviction. And this conviction is perceived by your vibrational field. That is what opens paths, connects opportunities, and transforms your perception. The world responds to your frequency, not to your superficial desires. This law also teaches something essential. Life is not against you. The universe is not testing your patience, nor blocking your prosperity. What seems like a blockage is, in fact, only the reflection of an inner state that has not yet been adjusted. When you understand this, you stop fighting the world and start working on the only thing that truly matters, your inner vibration. And what is the first step? Taking responsibility, not blame, but responsibility. You are not a victim of reality, you are its co-creator. This shift in perspective removes the weight of waiting and places power back in your hands. It's not about waiting for a miracle, it's about becoming the miracle. And that process begins with a simple question. What am I believing right now that is creating what I'm living? When you learn to answer that question honestly, you begin to activate the law of inner manifestation. And what once seemed impossible starts to move, because true change always starts within. The life you're living at this very moment is shaped, to a great extent, by who you believe you are. And that is why transforming your reality doesn't begin with changing the world out there, but with recognizing the truth of who you are inside. Spiritual identity is not an abstract concept. It is the invisible foundation that supports everything you manifest. If you see yourself as someone limited, constantly on the margins of blessings, your world will mirror that view. But if you begin to see yourself as a being of abundance, guided by God, sustained by a higher force, the reflection changes. From early on, we were conditioned to assume an identity built on fear, comparison, and the expectations of others. We were taught to believe we are small, sinful, insufficient, and when that belief takes root, it begins to drive our choices, our behavior, our vibration. The result? A life that revolves around survival, not the expression of our purpose. But the truth is different. Within you, there is a divine spark, a pure consciousness connected to the creative source. You are not here by accident. You are a living extension of the intelligence that governs the universe. And when you reconnect with this spiritual identity, something extraordinary happens. Fear begins to fade, and potential begins to blossom. Jacobo Grinberg understood this deeply. He claimed that the field of reality is shaped according to the inner structure of each being. In other words, reality responds not to what you desire, but to what you are. And being begins within. It begins with how you see yourself, how you treat yourself, how you position yourself before life. The sentence you learned, "I am the source and the supply of my infinite wealth, and everything I need flows to me," is not just a string of words. It is a call back to your original identity. It invites you to leave behind the mindset of scarcity and to assume the role of someone who is already in communion with divine abundance. It's not about pretending, it's about remembering. Remembering that you were created with purpose, that you are heir to a limitless creative force, that you carry within yourself the capacity to transform not only your life but the world around you. True prosperity begins when you stop trying to get and start expressing what is already yours by spiritual right. You don't need to prove yourself worthy. You already are. Your very existence is the proof. Spiritual identity is the key that opens the doors of the invisible. And once you assume it, the entire universe begins to respond to your presence as one recognizes a child returning home. There are words that inform, others that comfort, but there are words that create. Words that, when spoken with awareness, faith, and spiritual authority, have the power to move invisible realities and alter the course of existence. The sentence you received in this video, "I am the source and the supply of my infinite wealth, and everything I need flows to me," belongs to that category. It isn't a magic formula. It is a declaration of alignment with the truth. In spiritual tradition and also in the science of the mind, studied by Jacobo Grinberg, the verb has creative power. Grinberg understood that consciousness shapes the field of reality, and that this field responds to the vibration emitted by each individual, and words are direct emitters of that vibration. When you speak something with faith, you are emitting a coherent frequency capable of reorganizing the information around you. Like a seed that upon touching the fertile soil of your consciousness begins to sprout. The sentence you are learning activates exactly that process. When you declare it firmly, without doubt, you are taking a spiritual stand. You are telling the universe, your mind, and your soul, "I know who I am, and I know what already belongs to me. And that certainty changes everything. But pay attention, the power of the sentence is not in the isolated words. It is in the inner state from which it is spoken. If you say the sentence in fear, hoping something will change so that you can then believe, the field remains as it is. But if you speak with conviction, with inner authority, as someone confirming what is already real in the spiritual plane, then the field begins to reorganize immediately. That is the difference between asking and declaring. Asking comes from lack. Declaring comes from certainty. And true faith is that quiet certainty that doesn't need proof because it already knows. When you say, "I am the source and the supply of my infinite wealth," you're not lying to yourself. You are recognizing the spark of God within you, which is inexhaustible. This sentence also plays a crucial role in re-educating the mind. For years, perhaps decades, you've repeated words of limitation. I don't have, I can't, it's hard. Those words created mental structures that need to be undone. And the new sentence works like a key that unlocks what was locked. It breaks old cycles and sets a new direction, one of abundance, trust, and surrender. So speak with faith, speak with courage, speak as someone who has already received, and then be silent. For those who trust, rest. The seed has been planted. The soil is already fertile. Now it's only a matter of time before the harvest comes, because the word, when spoken in faith, never returns empty. Speaking with faith is powerful, but remaining steadfast after speaking is what determines whether your reality will be transformed or not. Most people can manage to declare something with hope, but they stumble right after when doubt appears, and it always appears. It is at that moment that true transformation is put to the test, when you decide whether you will sustain the inner state you declared or return to negotiating with fear. Jacobo Grinberg taught that the field of reality is malleable, but highly sensitive to the vibrational state of the observer. In other words, reality responds to the persistence of your frequency, not just to a momentary spike of inspiration. If you speak a sentence of power, but soon after return to complaining, doubting, or worrying, you break the field. It's like planting a seed and digging up the soil every day to see if it's growing. The secret is to plant and trust. To remain is more than to resist. To remain is to keep the heart anchored in truth, even when the eyes see no evidence. It is to live based on the invisible, knowing that visible manifestation is a consequence, not a cause. That is the essence of spiritual steadiness. It isn't about being insensitive, it's about being stable. While many oscillate between faith and fear, hope and despair, the one who remains builds something unshakable. This requires spiritual maturity. It requires the willingness to refuse negotiation with the old self. When you declare that you are the source of your wealth, that everything flows to you, life will test that statement, not to punish you, but to strengthen you. Situations will arise to see whether you truly believe or merely repeated pretty words. And when that happens, your task is not to fight, it is to remain. To remain means to act as someone who already possesses. It means responding with serenity to chaos, with gratitude to apparent delays, with conviction even when nothing has changed yet. It is understanding that reality needs time to adjust to the new frequency you decided to sustain. If you give up halfway, it's not because the sentence didn't work. It's because you interrupted the process before it completed. But if you choose to remain day after day in the awareness of what you have already declared, the field organizes, connections happen, and the invisible begins to take form. Steadfastness is the bridge between the invisible and the visible, and those who learn to cross it firmly inevitably attain what was promised, because God does not fail. Reality responds, but it only bows to those who stand upright within, even when everything around them seems contrary. There is a moment in your day when heaven opens and the mind grows quiet. an instant when the door between the conscious and the unconscious cracks open, allowing you to plant with clarity and force the seeds of the reality you wish to live. This moment happens every night, right before you fall asleep. And when you understand the power of this interval, you begin to use sleep not only as rest, but as the conscious reprogramming of your life. The state between wakefulness and sleep is known in neuroscience as the hypnagogic state. Jacobo Grinberg studied it deeply in his research on expanded consciousness. He discovered that in this stage, the rational mind, responsible for judgments and limitations, begins to slow down, making room for slower brainwaves, like alpha and theta, the same ones present in childhood, when the mind absorbs everything without filters. That is precisely where the secret lies. Everything you feed at that moment seeps into your subconscious as a vibrational command. And the subconscious is the great shaper of your everyday reality. If you fall asleep thinking about problems, worried about debts, replaying what went wrong, that is what you will continue to recreate. But if you choose, with intention, to seed it with faith, images of abundance, words of power, and feelings of gratitude, then you will be reconfiguring the invisible structure that sustains your life. This moment is sacred because it is silent. It's when you no longer need to convince anyone or act to prove anything. It is the instant of pure alignment between your spirit, your mind, and the field that responds to your inner state. That is when you should declare only once, with unshakable faith, I am the source and the supply of my infinite wealth, and everything I need flows to me. Do not repeat it like someone who begs. Speak like someone who recognizes. Feel like someone who has already received. Visualize your life transformed. See yourself walking in peace, with clarity, with confidence. Feel the relief of one who knows everything is flowing, and then fall asleep in that state. Do not get distracted by old thoughts. Do not return to the cycle of fear. Enter sleep carrying certainty, not doubt. This simple habit, practiced consistently, has the power to rebuild your identity and change your reality. Because what is sown in the silence of the night blooms in the light of day. You will wake up different. Ideas will come more clearly. Fear will be smaller. The spirit will be lighter. And over time, the world around you will begin to reflect this new seed planted in faith. Night is not the end of the day. It is the beginning of a new creation. True faith does not wait to see in order to believe. It lives as one who already possesses. This is the final key of conscious manifestation: to live what is already written, to act as one who has already received, to move with the certainty that the invisible reality has already been sealed in the spiritual realm, and therefore it is only a matter of time before it becomes visible. When you understand this, you stop acting like a beggar before life and start behaving like an heir. An heir does not doubt. He does not ask whether he will receive. He prepares. He acts with responsibility, with posture, with honor, because he knows that what has been promised already belongs to him. So too should be your posture before the promise of abundance. Grinberg understood this truth from a scientific and spiritual perspective. Everything that exists is already encoded in the field of possibilities. What changes is not what is available, but what you are aligned with. When you live in fear, doubt, or anxiety, you move away from the reality you desire. But when you sustain a state of inner certainty, you connect directly with what has already been written about you. And what has been written: that you are upheld, that you are provided for, that you were created with purpose and provision. Scarcity is learned, but abundance is essence. And living the "it is already done" is refusing to negotiate with appearances. It is walking by faith, not by sight. It is acting with gratitude before seeing the fruit. It is giving thanks for the open door, even when it is still locked to the physical eyes. This is the secret that transforms the life of the one who perseveres. It is not the force with which you ask, but the conviction with which you live. If you desire prosperity, start behaving like someone prosperous. Take excellent care of what you have. Organize your life as someone ready to receive more. Speak as someone who already has. Walk with poise. Make wise decisions. And above all, be grateful even before you receive. Gratitude before the harvest is the highest proof of faith. It is the spiritual seal that confirms to the universe, I have already received. And once you live this way, time and events begin to align with this new vibration. The right ideas arise, the right people appear, the impossible begins to move, not by magic, but by alignment. Living the "it is already written" is living with confidence, with lightness, and with authority. It is not arrogance. It is obedience to what God has already placed within you. And when you assume this identity, everything around you recognizes who you have become. The promise is alive. Reality is under construction. Now all you need to do is remain in that state until the invisible becomes inevitable. Now that you have understood the truth behind inner manifestation, the time has come to act, but not with haste or desperation. The action that transforms comes from the spirit, not from anxiety. It is born of the quiet certainty that what you seek has already been released, and that your only task is to align with that reality. So today, you have a clear choice: to keep living by old patterns, feeding doubt, scarcity, fear, or to assume once and for all the identity of one who already carries provision within. The sentence you learned is not a ritual, it is a lever. Say it a single time with true faith, and then live as one who already possesses everything you declared. I am the source and the supply of my infinite wealth, and everything I need flows to me. Speak, give thanks, trust, and remain. If you felt this calling, declare now in the comments, I am the living proof of God's abundance. This simple act seals your decision, anchors your new identity, and sends a clear signal to the field around you. You are ready. Subscribe to the channel to receive more content like this, and share this video with someone who also needs to awaken to this truth. Your new cycle begins now, and it begins within you.